My family gave my brother a restaurant empire and tossed me a rundown diner as a joke. They laughed until I turned it into a $2 million drone business. Now they want a piece. But I've got other plans. My name's Lucas Reed, 32 years old, and I run a small drone delivery outfit these days. But 5 years back, I was just the family screw-up, or at least that's what my folks thought. They handed my brother Travis a golden ticket while tossing me a rusty old bone, thinking it'd keep me busy and out of their hair. This is the tale of how they tried to shove me aside, only to watch me turn their joke into something they couldn't ignore. Here's the deal. My family's big into the restaurant game. Dad, Henry Reed, started with one greasy spoon diner back in the day and built it into a chain called Reed's Kitchen. Fancy spots with cloth napkins and overpriced steaks. Mom, Diane, kept the books tight and the staff in line. Travis, my older brother by 3 years, wasn't some hotshot chef or business whiz. Nah, he just knew how to nod along to Dad's orders and flash that charming smile Mom adored. Me? I was the spare tire. Useful if they needed something hauled, but otherwise ignored. 5 years ago, they decided it was time to pass the torch. Travis got handed the keys to a dozen of Reed's Kitchen's best locations, prime spots in bustling downtowns and shiny suburbs. Packed dining rooms, loyal customers, the works. And me? They gave me this crumbling, old diner on the edge of a nowhere town called Elton. No staff, no customers, just a dusty building with a cracked sign that still said Reed's in faded red letters. It was a relic from Dad's early days, abandoned when he moved on to bigger things. We were sitting around the dining table at their big house when they dropped it on me. Dad slid this yellow deed across the table, smirking like he'd just pulled a fast one. Here you go, Lucas, he said, swirling his bourbon. A little project for you. Let's see if you've got any grit. Travis chuckled, wiping steak sauce off his chin. What's he gonna serve? Cobwebs. Mom patted his arm like he'd cracked the joke of the century, then looked at me with this pitying smile. It's a chance to prove yourself, honey. I grabbed that deed, my fingers digging into the paper so hard it nearly tore. Appreciate it, I muttered, jaw tight. Inside, I was boiling. They didn't just give me a dud, they gave me a punchline. Travis leaned over, still grinning. Maybe you can open a haunted diner. Sell ghost burgers. That hit me square in the gut. I'd spent my whole life trying to measure up, and they thought I was worth a laugh. I stormed out that night, the deed stuffed in my jacket, feeling like dirt. But as I drove home to my crummy apartment, something clicked. They thought they'd handed me nothing, but I saw a crack of daylight. Restaurants like theirs were starting to feel the heat. People weren't flocking to sit-down joints as much anymore. Delivery was king, and I had an idea brewing. That busted diner wasn't just a building, it was a foothold. See, I'd always been the hands-on type. While Travis was schmoozing at family meetings, I was fixing busted fryers or tinkering with tech in the garage. I'd read about drones taking off, literally, delivering packages faster than any van could. That diner sat on a big lot, out of the way, perfect for a launch pad. So I got to work. I sank every dime I had into fixing the place up, not to serve food, but to turn it into a hub for drone deliveries. I patched the roof, cleared the lot, and started rigging up a system to fly packages to folks in Elton and beyond. Within a year, I had local shops signing up, hardware stores, pharmacies, even a bakery wanting fresh bread dropped off hot. My drones buzzed overhead, and money started trickling in. By year 2, I was hiring a couple guys to keep the operation humming. Meanwhile, Travis's restaurants were hitting a wall. People weren't eating out like they used to. Too pricey, too slow. His fancy spots started looking like ghost towns themselves. Then one day my phone rang. It was Dad. Lucas, he said, voice gruff like he'd swallowed gravel. We need to have a sit-down about that little venture of yours. I leaned back on my beat-up couch, smirking. Now they wanted to chat? I could hear the panic under his tough guy act. Their empire was wobbling, and I was just getting started as there I was sitting on my lumpy couch with a cheap beer in hand when Dad called. His voice had that edge, like he was trying to sound calm, but couldn't quite pull it off. We need to have a sit-down about that little venture of yours, he said. I could picture him in his office, swirling that bourbon he loved, pretending he still ran the show. 5 years ago, he'd handed me a broke-down diner like it was a gag gift, and now my drone delivery gig was humming while his precious Reed's Kitchen chain was taking on water. Funny how things turn out. I agreed to meet him at the house, his turf, not mine. When I pulled up in my rusty pickup, the place looked the same as always, big, brick, with a lawn so green it hurt your eyes. But something felt off. Maybe it was the way the curtains stayed shut, like they were hiding from the world. I rang the bell, and Mom opened the door. She looked tired, her usual perfect hair a little messy. Lucas, she said, forcing a smile. Good to see you. I nodded, stepping inside. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and desperation. Dad was in his office, behind that giant oak desk he'd had since I was a kid. Framed pictures of him shaking hands with mayors and opening new restaurants lined the walls. Back when I was little, I'd stare at those photos, dreaming I'd be up there someday. Now, I just saw a guy clinging to yesterday. He looked up as I walked in, his gray hair thinner than I remembered. Take a seat, he said, pointing to the leather chair across from him. I sat, crossing my arms. All right, Henry, I said, skipping the dad part on purpose. What's this about? He cleared his throat, leaning back like he was still the boss of me. We've been keeping an eye on your operation, he started. The drones, the delivery thing. It's interesting. I raised an eyebrow. Interesting? That was rich coming from the guy who'd laughed when I got that diner deed. He kept going, ignoring my look. But it's a tricky business, Lucas. You're dealing with regulations, tech, weather, stuff you can't control. We think it'd be smart to bring it under the Reed's Kitchen umbrella. There it was the pitch. I almost laughed right in his face. We, I said, leaning forward. Who's a we? He waved a hand like it didn't matter. Me, your mother, Travis. The family. Point is, you've done all right for yourself, but you're out on a limb here. We've got resources, money, connections. You could grow faster with us. I let that hang in the air for a second, soaking it in. 5 years back, they treated me like a stray dog, tossing me a bone to chew on. Now that bone was worth something, and they wanted it back. I glanced over at Mom, who'd slipped into the room and was hovering by the bookshelf. She jumped in, her voice soft but pushy. Lucas, this could bring us all together again. Like it used to be. Used to be? I wanted to ask when that was. When I was fetching coffee for Travis's meetings, or when Dad told me at 14 I'd never cut it in the restaurant game. Instead, I turned back to Dad. So let me get this straight. You didn't give a damn when I started. You and Travis thought it was hilarious I'd try to make something out of that dump. But now that it's working, now that your restaurants are bleeding cash, you want a piece. Dad's face tightened, his knuckles going wide around his glass. Watch your tone, son. This isn't about pride. Our numbers are down, sure. I'll admit it. People aren't eating out like they used to. But we've got a name, a legacy. You tie in with us, and we all win. I cut him off. Your numbers aren't just down, Henry. I've seen the reports, online chatter, suppliers talking. Your downtown spots are half empty. Travis can't keep cooks on payroll. You're not offering me a win. You're asking me to prop you up. Silence hit the room like a brick. Mom fidgeted, twisting her necklace. Dad stared at me, his jaw working like he was chewing on something sour. You think you're untouchable, he said finally, voice low. You think this drone thing's gonna last? You've got no weight behind you, no history. You'll crash eventually. I stood up, brushing off my jeans. Maybe, but I'd rather crash on my own than tie myself to a sinking ship. You had your shot to believe in me. You didn't. So no, I'm not handing over what I built. Mom stepped forward, her eyes wide. Lucas, please. We're family. Don't turn your back on us. I looked at her, then at Dad, still glaring like he could will me into line. Family, I said. Funny how that only matters when you're losing. I headed for the door, my boots thudding on the hardwood. Lucas. Mom called, her voice cracking. I didn't stop. I hit the porch, climbed into my truck, and peeled out, gravel spitting behind me. They weren't done. I knew that. But neither was I. After I walked out on Dad's big join the family pitch, I figured there'd be some noise. I didn't expect a full-on storm, though. See, I'd turned that busted diner in Elton into a drone delivery hub that was starting to turn heads. Small businesses loved it, quick drops, low costs. I wasn't just surviving, I was growing. Meanwhile, Reed's Kitchen, my family's restaurant chain, was crumbling under Travis's watch, and Dad wasn't about to let me ride off into the sunset with my win. They came at me hard. It started with the calls. First, Mom left a voicemail, her voice all shaky. Lucas, we just want what's best. Call me back. I didn't. Then Travis texted, you're making a mistake, bro. We can still fix this. I ignored that too. By the end of the week, I had messages from old family friends, guys who'd golfed with Dad for years, saying stuff like, don't burn bridges, kid. It was coordinated, no doubt. They were circling the wagons, and I was the outsider they needed to rope back in. Then the real trouble hit. I've been working on permits to expand, new landing pads for my drones, a second site in a town 20 miles over. Suddenly, those applications got lost at the county office. A buddy of mine who works there tipped me off. Someone with pull was leaning on them to stall me. Next, my main supplier for drone parts, guy named Pete who'd been solid, called to say he couldn't fill my next order. Pressure from up top, he muttered, sounding cagey. I didn't need to guess who up top was. The kicker came Friday night. I was at the diner, tweaking a drone's navigation system, when my phone buzzed. It was Carl, one of my 2 investors, small-time guys who'd bet on me early. Lucas, he said, voice tight. Got a call today. Someone sniffing around, hinting your business might not be stable. Said I should pull out before it tanks. I gripped the wrench in my hand so hard my knuckles ached. Who called? I asked. Carl hesitated. Wouldn't say. But they knew details, numbers, projections. Stuff only someone connected would have. I hung up and kicked a crate across the room. Dad and Travis weren't just mad, they were scared. Reed's Kitchen was bleeding out, and they saw my operation as their lifeline. When I said no, they didn't back off. They started swinging. I'd grown up watching Dad play hardball cutting deals, twisting arms. He'd always bragged about it over dinner. Business is a fight, Lucas. You don't win by being nice. Guess I was learning that lesson now. I flashed back to when I was 16, helping at one of his restaurants. A supplier shorted us on beef, and Dad didn't just complain, he called in favors, got the guys' deliveries rerouted to competitors. By the end of the month, that supplier was begging to make it right. I thought it was smart back then. Now it was my turn to be on the other end. They weren't going to let me build something without a fight. Monday morning, I called my crew, Jimmy and Nate, the two guys I'd hired to keep the drones flying. We met at the diner, the hum of motors in the background. We've got trouble, I said, laying it out. The permits, the supplier, the investor scare. Jimmy, a wiry guy with a buzz cut, frowned. Your family's doing this? I nodded. They're spooked. Want me to fold so they can swoop in. Nate, bigger and quieter, scratched his beard. What's the play? I paced, thinking. We push harder. I've got cash saved, enough to cover parts if Pete bails. We find new suppliers, out of state if we have to. And those permits? We go public, make noise, get folks on our side. Jimmy grinned. You're gonna outmaneuver your own dad? I stopped, looking out the grimy window at the drones parked on the lot. He taught me how to fight. Just didn't think I'd use it on him. That afternoon, I hit the ground running. I called a guy in Ohio who sold drone gear, cheaper than Pete, even with shipping. Deal done. Then I posted online, nothing fancy, just a quick video from the diner. Hey, Elton, it's Lucas Reed. We're growing, more jobs, faster deliveries. But some big shots are trying to slow us down. Help us keep this going. I tagged local businesses we'd worked with. By nightfall, it had hundreds of shares, people commenting, keep it up, man. And don't let him bully you. Small-town folks don't like suits meddling with their own. Tuesday, Dad called. I let it ring. Then he texted, you're digging your own grave. I smirked and fired back. Dug yours first. Then I blocked him. If they wanted a war, I'd give him one. I wasn't some kid they could push around anymore. I built this, and I'd defend it. They'd see soon enough who was really out of moves. By now, I was in deep. My drone delivery gig was picking up steam, but my family, Dad, Mom, and Travis, were coming at me like a pack of wolves. They'd stalled my permits, spooked my suppliers, and tried to rattle my investors, all because I wouldn't hand over what I'd built to save their sinking Reed's Kitchen chain. I'd pushed back hard, new suppliers, public support, but I knew they weren't done. Guys like Dad don't quit. They doubled down. And that's exactly what happened. It started with a rumor. I was grabbing coffee at the gas station in Elton when old man Tucker, who runs the place, pulled me aside. Heard something, Lucas, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Words going around you're dodging taxes on that drone outfit. I froze, cup halfway to my mouth. That's bull, I said. He shrugged. Just what I heard. Came from some suit passing through, said he knew your folks. I thanked him and walked out, steam practically coming out my ears. Tax evasion? That wasn't a jab, that was a Molotov cocktail. By noon, my phone was blowing up. Local shop owners, guys I delivered for, were texting, asking if it was true. Don't want to get mixed up in trouble, one wrote. My inbox had emails from customers canceling orders, saying they'd heard things. Then Carl, my investor, called again. Lucas, this tax thing's got legs. People are talking lawsuits. I'm getting nervous. I clenched my jaw. It's a lie, Carl. They're smearing me. He sighed. I believe you, but optics matter. I might have to step back. I slammed the phone down and paced the diner, my boots scuffing the cracked floor. This wasn't just arm twisting. It was a gut punch to kill my business. Dad had connections, City Hall, old business buddies, even a cousin who worked at the IRS. I'd seen him ruin people before. When I was 19, he blackballed a guy who tried opening a rival diner, spread whispers about health code violations till the place shut down. Now he was turning the playbook on me. That night, I sat in the diner's back room, staring at a stack of bills. Jimmy and Nate were out front, running test flights. I kept them in the dark about how bad it was getting. I didn't want them bailing. My savings could float us a month, maybe two, but if customers kept dropping, we'd be toast. I was about to call it a night when headlights swept the lot. A black SUV pulled up, Dad's ride. My stomach nodded. He hadn't shown up in person since this started. He walked in, alone, his overcoat flapping in the wind. No bourbon glass this time, just a tired look in his eyes. Lucas, he said, voice flat. We gotta talk. I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. You've done enough talking through your rumor mill. He didn't flinch. You're making this harder than it needs to be. We're in a hole. Travis can't turn the restaurants around. We need your operation to pull us out. I laughed, sharp and bitter. So you take me instead? Spread lies about taxes? He rubbed his temple, like I was the headache. It's business, son. Pressure's how you get results. But I'm here to end it. Fold in with us, full partnership. No more games. I stared at him, the guy who'd built an empire and taught me to hustle, now begging me to save it. And if I say no? His eyes narrowed. Then it gets uglier. I don't want to go there, but I will. I stepped closer, close enough to smell his cologne. You're already there, Henry. You think I'll buckle cause you sling mud? I've got proof, receipts, tax filings. I'll fight this, and I'll win. He shook his head, almost sad. You're stubborn as hell. Just like me. He turned to leave, then paused. Last chance, Lucas. Think about it. The door slammed behind him. I stood there, heart pounding. He wasn't bluffing. Uglier meant legal threats, maybe audits. But I wasn't bluffing either. Next morning, I called a lawyer friend, Dan, from high school. Can you dig into this tax rumor? I asked. See who's pushing it? Dan agreed. No questions. Then I rallied Jimmy and Nate. We're doubling down, I said. More flights, more clients. We outrun this crap. Nate nodded. Boss, we're with you. Jimmy cracked his knuckles. Let's bury him. By week's end, Dan called back. Found something. A guy at the county clerk's office got a tip from a concerned citizen traced to a burner phone. No name, but it's fishy. I grinned. Keep digging. Then I posted another video. Lucas Reed here. Some folks are spreading garbage about us, tax lies. We're clean, and we're not stopping. Stick with us, Elton. The response was instant. Likes, shares, comments like, screw the haters. Small towns love an underdog. Dad's move had backfired. He pushed me to the edge, but I wasn't breaking, I was building. He'd see soon enough. I didn't need his empire. I was making my OWN.my drone delivery business was holding strong despite my family's dirty tricks, stalled permits, cut off suppliers, and now that tax evasion rumor they'd spread to scare off my customers. Dad had shown up at my diner, offering a partnership like it was some grand favor, but I told him to shove it. I wasn't folding. I was fighting. And just when I thought I'd seen the worst of it, they cranked the heat up higher. But so did I. The next blow came fast. Tuesday morning, I got a letter from the county, official looking, stamped, the whole deal. They were reviewing my business license, claiming concerns about compliance. I dotted every I and crossed every T, but there it was in black and white, a hearing in 2 weeks. If I lost, they could shut me down. Jimmy was with me when I opened it, his eyes bugging out. This is crap, Lucas. They're making it up. I nodded, tossing the paper on the counter. Yeah, and I'd bet my truck Dad's behind it. Nate poked his head in from the lot, wiping grease off his hands. What's the move, boss? I rubbed my jaw, thinking. We keep flying. They want to ground us, but we've got time. I'll handle the legal junk. Inside, though, I was sweating. My lawyer buddy Dan was already digging into the tax rumor, but this license thing was a whole new beast. I called him anyway. Dan, they're coming for my license now. Can you fight this? He whistled low. That's heavy, man. I'll file a counter, buy us some breathing room. But it's gonna cost. I didn't blink. Do it. I'm not losing this. Meanwhile, Travis made his move. I was out grabbing lunch, burger and fries from a food truck, when my phone lit up with a news alert. Reed's Kitchen CEO Travis Reed announces major overhaul to save chain. I clicked it. There he was, my brother, all polished in a suit, grinning for the camera. We're adapting, he said in the clip. Delivery's the future, and we're rolling out our own service, fast, reliable, Reed's Kitchen quality. My burger nearly fell out of my hand. Delivery? That was my game. He was copying me, straight up. I called Jimmy. You see this? Travis is stealing our playbook. Jimmy laughed, dark and sharp. He's desperate, man. Their kitchens can't pivot that fast. They're drowning in overhead. He was right. Reed's Kitchen was built for sit-down dining, big staffs, fancy decor. They couldn't just slap wings in a bag and call it delivery. Still, it stung. I'd carved this lane out of nothing, and now Travis was trying to ride my coattails. That night, Mom showed up at my apartment. I was sprawled on the couch, half watching a game, when the knock came. I opened the door, and there she was, coat pulled tight, as red like she'd been crying. Lucas, she said, voice soft. Can I come in? I stepped aside, wary. She sat on my ratty recliner, looking out of place in her pearls. This has to stop, she said. Your father's a mess. Travis is scrambling. You're tearing us apart. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Me? They're the ones gunning for me, permits, rumors, now my license. Travis is even jacking my idea. She flinched, but kept going. They're scared, honey. The restaurants are all we've got. You're doing so well, can't you help us? I snorted. Help? They didn't help me when I was scraping by. They laughed, Mom. You laughed. Her face crumpled. I know we hurt you, but we're family. That's worth something. I wanted to believe her. I did. There was a kid in me who still remembered her baking cookies, tucking me in. But that kid grew up watching her cheer Travis while I got scraps. Family didn't mean much when I was the punchline, I said. You need a bailout, not a son. She stood, shaky. You're breaking your father's heart. I pointed to the door. He broke mine first. Go. She left, head down, and I locked the bolt behind her, chest tight. Next day, I fought back. Then filed papers to delay the license hearing, some technicality about insufficient notice. Bought me a month. Then I leaned into Travis's stunt. I posted a video from the diner lot, drones buzzing behind me. Lucas Reed here. Some folks are jumping on the delivery train late. Good luck catching up. We've been doing this right from day one. Stick with us. It went viral locally, thousands of views, comments trashing Reed's Kitchen. Overpriced and slow, one said. Lucas has my business, wrote another. By Friday, the tide shifted. Dan called. That tax rumor? Traced it to a guy linked to your dad's old accountant. We've got leverage, could threaten a defamation suit. I grinned. Hold it for now. Let's see their next play. Then Carl, my investor, rang. Lucas, that video killed it. I'm staying in, rumors be damned. I punched the air. The town was rallying, my crew was solid, and my family was slipping. They'd pushed me to the edge, but I was pushing back harder. This wasn't over, not yet. I was in the thick of it. My drone delivery business was hanging tough, even with my family, Dad, Mom, and Travis, throwing everything they had at me. They'd messed with my permits, spread tax lies, and now they were gunning for my license while Travis tried to steal my delivery idea. I'd pushed back with lawyers, videos, and pure grit, and the town of Elton was starting to root for me. But I knew it wasn't over till it was over. And man, did it come down to the wire. The license hearing was a week away, and Dan, my lawyer buddy, was working overtime. He delayed it once, but we couldn't dodge it forever. They've got no real case, he told me over the phone. It's all smoke, anonymous complaints, vague concerns. We'll shred it. I trusted him, but my gut still churned. If they won, my drones were grounded. Meanwhile, Travis's big delivery overhaul at Reed's Kitchen launched and flopped hard. I saw the reviews online. Cold food, tower weight, one said. Stick to burgers, Lucas, another chimed in. I couldn't help but smirk. He'd rushed it, and it showed. Then Dad made his last stand. I was at the diner, checking flight logs, when Jimmy ran in. Boss, your old man's outside, brought company. I stepped out and saw Dad's SUV, plus a sedan with a county seal on it. Two guys in cheap suits climbed out, inspectors, I figured. Dad strode up, looking rougher than last time, his tie crooked. Lucas, he said, loud enough for my crew to hear. This ends now. These folks are here to audit your operation, safety, taxes, the works. You're done playing big shot. I squared up, heart thumping. You're bluffing, Henry. I'm clean, you know it. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. We'll see. The inspectors started poking around, checking drone logs, asking for permits. Jimmy and Nate hovered nearby, ready to back me up. I called Dan on speaker. They're here, man in county suits with Dad. What do I do? Dan's voice crackled through. Give him everything, records, receipts. We've got the tax rumor tied to his guy. If they push, we countersue. I hung up and handed over my files, calm as I could manage. Go ahead, fellas. Nothing to hide. They took their time, 2 hours of flipping pages, muttering to each other. Dad stood by his car, arms crossed, like he'd already won. Finally, the older inspector walked over. Mr. Reed, we're done. No violations. Your license stands. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Dad's face fell. What? He snapped. Check again. The guy shook his head. It's solid. We're leaving. They packed up and drove off, leaving Dad staring at me like I'd grown horns. I stepped closer. That's it, Henry. You're out of moves. He opened his mouth, then shut it, jaw tight. You think this is a win? He said finally. You've got nothing without us. I laughed, loud and real. I've got everything, 'cause I built it. You're the one with nothing left. He turned, got in his SUV, and peeled out. Just kicked up behind him, and I knew that was the last I'd see of him for a while. The fallout came quick. Reed's Kitchen tanked hard after Travis's delivery mess. News hit a week later. Reed's Kitchen files for bankruptcy after failed pivot. Half their spots closed overnight, empty dining rooms, for lease, signs popping up. Travis vanished from the headlines, no more slick interviews. Mom called once, voice shaky. We're selling the house, Lucas. Moving smaller. I didn't pick up, just let it go to voicemail. They'd made their bed. Me? I didn't stop. With the license safe and the town behind me, I expanded 2 new hubs, more drones, bigger contracts. My crew grew. Jimmy and Nate got raises, and I hired 3 more guys. Investors like Carl doubled down, and cash started piling up. One night, I drove out to the diner, parked, and just sat there, looking at the buzzing lot. That crumbling dump they'd mocked me with was now the heart of something real, something mine. A month later, I got a letter, no return address, just Dad's handwriting. You proved me wrong, kid. Keep going. No sorry, no soft words, just that. I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. Didn't need his nod. I'd earned my own. The next week, I broke ground on a new headquarters, a sleek setup with a control tower for the drones. Stood there watching the bulldozers, dust swirling, and felt free. Not mad, not smug, just done with their shadow. Years back, Dad had said over dinner, you'll get it when you've got something to lose. Maybe he was right, but I'd lost plenty, their trust, their respect, and built more without him. If I ever have a family, I'll make damn sure they know they're enough, no scraps needed. A reporter caught me at the news site, asked if I regretted cutting ties. I grinned. They thought I'd crash. I flew instead. That's all I've got to say. And it was. I wasn't living for them anymore. I was living for me.